Lia,
Yes.
thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the Tourage podcast.
Yes.
Tourage is short for the Enlightened Entourage. It's just Entourage without the E and the N in front. I just did that to get more SEO if like people were searching it and stuff. But really appreciate you coming through. I guess for anybody that's just listening, the way that you and I met, Organic Buzz was like, yo, we're doing some interviews for the end of the year. Can you come through, bring some of your camera setup, etc. You sat down, and actually before you came, they like gave me your Instagram. I just wanted to go through and see, like, you know, you never know what could flush into your mind when you're just looking at what somebody posts and about what you want to ask them or whatever. And I was like, oh shit, I'm already following this girl. I think I had gotten to the ID picture that looks like ODB.
Oh, yeah.
And I just hit follow right away. I was like, yeah, this is cool. So for everyone listening, what is your name and what do you like to go by?
So my name is Lia Bass. Most people call me Slim. I do meet some people who call me Oldirtiislim, and I'm like, I like that just because.
Oldirtiislim? Yeah, I like that too.
I like that, yeah.
Dirty with two eyes?
Dirty with two eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oldirtiislim. Yeah, it's from ODB. I was like a huge Wu-Tang fan. So as I told you before, so I also noticed the Tao Vu over there. I like that.
Did you read that?
I haven't read it yet. I have to buy it. I'm gonna buy it.
You could borrow that one if you want.
No, but
you just gotta give it back.
I'm leaving, remember? So I'd have to mail it to you. But then that just makes me buy it. I need to add it to my collection, you know.
It's one of the better books that I've ever read, for sure.
All right, I'm gonna have to peep. And you read Alan Watts, so that's a.
Yeah, I've definitely listened to a lot of Alan Watts. What books do you have by Alan Watts?
The only one I have on hand is the Wisdom of Insecurity.
Okay, right. I listened to like whatever that talk was. He's got like a philosophy talk that's probably like 2 hours or something like that. That's all on there.
You told me about that. I'm gonna have to peep that.
Yeah.
That one and the Jordan Peterson one.
Yeah. This is a book, the 12 Rules for Life, that I was telling you about too. I was bringing up a couple of those rules when we first met.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to read. I need some new books, so Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, we'll make a list for sure. So what do you do?
Well, I'm a model. I'm a signed model. I'm looking to get into taking acting classes. I don't really want to limit myself to just modeling. I want to take on all different forms of being on camera. It doesn't even necessarily have to be on camera either. I would love to do voiceovers, anything that like invokes emotion really. But as of right now, I'm mostly focused on modeling.
How long?
Fashion model.
How long have you been modeling for?
It'll be 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years this upcoming February.
Okay. How'd you start?
I was in Miami, and I was playing basketball, and so many things led up to me being in Miami.
You were living there?
Yeah, I was on campus, actually. I had left. So initially, after high school, I like played basketball all my life. As I told you before, I started playing basketball at 8. I played all through high school, and I just didn't want to do it anymore for like numerous reasons, like things with my father. It just really wasn't fun to me anymore, you know. So, but I know that was all my family really expected for me to do. So I was like,
play ball.
Yeah, it was like, you know. And then after I graduated, I didn't really get any like big offers because towards the end, I kind of started blowing it. Like I wasn't really like calling back. I wasn't really like even playing like I wanted to be recruited, and my grades were terrible. So.
You talking recruited for like the WNBA?
No, for college. After high school.
After high school.
Yeah,
okay.
So my grades were also terrible because I just didn't want to do it. I like kind of turned into like an asshole. I was like very rebellious at the time. Like you know, I was so rebellious, and but I was good. You know, it's like everybody was always so pissed at me. Like, what are you doing, kind of thing. And I was just like, I don't know. I didn't feel it anymore. You know.
Yeah.
So I wasn't being recruited, and I was just gonna stay home. And I had randomly got a call from this coach in Nebraska, and he had coached one of my former teammates. And after he coached her for a year, she ended up going D1 to one of these schools. I forget which school, but he basically was telling me, like, if you come, I can offer you the same thing. Like, I can do that for you. Just come play for me. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. That was my mom and my mom and my dad. It was like a no-brainer. Like, duh, you're going. Like, you know what I mean? So
did they help you out with school?
yeah, they helped me. Like, they bought my ticket and stuff. They got me out there. Like, if I needed anything, they always gave me what I wanted, kind of thing too. Like, my mom, she always did like anything she could do. She always, was supportive. So I left, and I just didn't want to stay there. Like, so what happened was he said, you have to come the next day. Like, I need you here tomorrow. So I was like, well, damn, like, less than 24 hours, I have to go leave to Nebraska. Like, I wasn't really ready for it. But
like, move or just like interview or something?
No, I had to go. Like, they
really?
wanted me there, like, pack up all my stuff for the season, and I had to be there. Like,
Damn.
So I was like, I'm not really ready for that. But I went and did it. Like, I was like, whatever. I was like, maybe this is a sign. Like, I'm not supposed to stop playing ball yet. So I went, and I was there, and one of my friends ended up having this, like, she ended up having this party for something. I don't even know. But on top of the fact that, like, when I got there, I was already miserable. I was in the middle of Norfolk, Nebraska. There's nothing to do. I was just like, what am I doing here, kind of thing. I wasn't really ready. All my friends were still together back home. I was young, like, those things wouldn't matter to me now. But at the time, like, I was like, all my friends are still together. I'm out here by myself, blah, blah, blah. I was crying. My roommate was crying. So when I wasn't crying, she made me want to cry. Like, it was just bad. And so one of my friends had a party, and I was like, I want to go to this party. Like, I want to go. And my coach was like, you're not leaving. You just got here. And long story short, I ended up leaving. And when I, like, tried to go back, they were like, what are you?
Where was the party local, or was it somewhere?
No, it was in Springfield.
Oh, okay. Where?
So I had flew all the way back home. Like, I just wanted a weekend home. Like, and when I tried to go back, he was like, you're not coming back. Like, like, what are you doing? So I, like, blew my scholarship. My, like, parents were mad. My mom actually ended up moving to Alabama. So she was like, you can either stay in Springfield or you can move here with me. But, like, you blew it, kind of thing. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll come to Alabama because, like, what am I going to do here? So I lived in Alabama for a short amount of time. I hated it there, too.
Really?
And we were in Selma. Alabama. It was the worst. I was like, what am I doing here? But my older sister actually lives there. So my mom, we went there, and was, like, very short-lived. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me either. I ended up moving back to Springfield, and I was there. I was, like, staying in between my friend's house. I wasn't, like, living with my dad yet.
In Springfield, Mass, just because there's like 48 Springfields.
Not The Simpsons, yes. So we had, my dad and I weren't really on, like, good terms yet. Like, we weren't on the best of terms still. So I wasn't living with him. I was, like, staying with my
Because friend. You bounced, or because that's just how you and your
it's just were? Our relationship kind of been that way since I was, like, 8. He kind of left, and things kind of went to shit after that. We're way better now, but at the time, it was like, I'm staying in between my friend's house. So I was like, I have to figure something out. So I had found out about this school out here called Pine Manor. It was like this all-girls school. And I was like, I don't even want to be at a school full of all girls. Like, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to be around a whole bunch of women all the time.
Pine Manor?
Yes, Pine Manor. And it wasn't a bad school. It was just...
So you went?
Yeah, I went. Okay. It was interesting. I went for a semester. So I went spring semester, and my dad actually moved me in. I was like, I have to go to school because I, 1, don't know what else to do, and 2, I need somewhere to live. So I was like, I'm just going to go live on this campus. Like, I don't know what else to do. So I was there for a semester. I met great people. I had a good time. It was a wild time. It was very wild. I was like, I can't come back to school here. Like, I'm not even going to finish if I come back here. This place is crazy. So
where is that?
In Chestnut Hill in Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was interesting. And then I ended up going back to Springfield. I was going to Holyoke Community College, like taking my studies or whatever. I always got good grades when I actually cared. Like, school's easy. So if I'm blowing it, I'm just blowing it because I want to, like,
Yeah.
So I was doing good. I ended up transferring from there to Roxbury Community College out here. And that was where I met my coach at the time, Coach Mark. So when I had got here, he had, I was playing for his team. He recruited me to play for him. We lived in this house in Roxbury, like right around the corner from the school. It was 2 floors, 5 girls to each floor. So it was a house. That house was crazy too, but it was a good time. Like we all played on the same team, so it was like a boarding house for the team. So it was cool. I had somewhere to live, so I wasn't complaining, like, you know. And my coach was actually really nice. The first season, I ended up not finishing the season. I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. But he let me stay in school. He was like, you can still live here, blah, blah, blah. That summer, I was like, I'm not coming back. He persuaded me to come back. So I ended up going back, and I was playing again. And he was like, towards the end of that year, I didn't really want to play anymore, but he wouldn't let me quit. He was like, you're not quitting. Like, there's colleges looking at you. Just finish your degree. Just use basketball to get your degree. Like, that was his thing. Like, if you don't want to play basketball ever again, don't after you graduate. Like, you know. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Like, it sounds simple, but it's really not that simple.
Yeah.
So I ended
Especially because you kind of already knew that.
Didn't want to do it. Like, you know, it was tough. So I was like, oh, well, I guess this is one of those things where you got to do what you have to do now. So I was like, whatever. So I ended up getting recruited to the school in Miami, which is St. Thomas University. So it was NAIA D1. So I went, I played. My coach at the time, she was tough, but she was nice. She was a good coach. I think she was a good coach. I would say she was a good coach. But like I said, for me to not have really wanted to do it, we had 5 a.m.s. So we had to get up at 5 a.m., go to practice. We would like do weights and conditioning, go to breakfast. Then I'd be in class till like 1:30. I was able to go to sleep, be at study hall at 2:30 or 2 to 4. Then I had practice again from 5 to like 9 p.m. Like every single day. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, dude, I don't even want to do this bad to be doing this every day. Like, yeah. But I did it, like, all the preseason, everything like that. I ended up doing it, and then something just clicked, and I was like, yeah, I just don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I'm pretty sure her and I got into, like, a big fight or something like that in a practice. I walked out. I don't even know. But I was just like, this isn't it. Like, you know? And she always had her, like, small jokes, like that I looked like I was a musician or something. Like, I should be playing a guitar somewhere.
A magician?
No, a musician. Like, I should be playing a guitar somewhere or something as opposed to playing basketball just because of the way I dressed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I was always into, so, like, this is where the story ties back into how I got started into modeling. So I was always into getting dressed and things like that. Like, growing up, it started off, I was like a sneakerhead. But then my dad and my mom, they started taking me shopping. And my first article of clothing that I fell in love with, it was like this baby fat Sherlin. So getting dressed was always like a thing for me, you know? So I would like be fully dressed in like fedoras and stuff. And my teammates are in sweats. And my coach is like, and even if I was in sweats, I found a way to kind of make it like, you know, dress it up kind of. Or like, I don't know, just however I felt comfortable, more or less. But, so I took pictures for, like, Instagram and stuff like that mostly, just for myself. And I ended up connecting with this designer on Instagram.
Did you reach out to them or they reached out to you?
I want to say she reached out to me. I want to say that because at the time I wasn't really modeling. Like, you know, I'm not really 100% sure, though, so I don't want to lie on her either. Yeah. But...
And who is she?
Instagram is super tiny, and it connected us. It's weird. Jamie McCartney.
Okay.
Jamie McCartney. So she's this designer based out of Brooklyn, and we ended up like talking via Instagram. She was like, "Yeah, you should model my clothes for me," and I was like, like I never really modeled for anybody besides myself. Like I was kind of freaked out, and then we ended up meeting up. The guy who shot us was from Brazil, and him and his like girlfriend or his wife at the time were only in town for like a short amount of time. So we like got together, we did it, and it was good. Like the shoot came out so dope, and it actually got published in like this overseas like online magazine or something. So I was like, oh, okay, well, dope. Like, you know, that's cool. Like it's my first time actually doing something like this, and it worked out, and I didn't like blow it. Like, you know, I like looked good, but I also felt good. Like, you know, like it just felt so like natural, kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like I tell people all the time, I don't really like to say like growing up I watched all the America's Next Top Model cycles, even though I did, because I feel like every girl has, like, you know. So I don't really want to make that like a staple as to why I started, like, you know, why I always felt like a little like inkling that I could be good at it or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. Like, I don't know. I guess that could maybe been like subconsciously I didn't know all this time.
Yeah.
You know, but it kind of just fell in my lap, I should say. And it just worked. Like, if it just felt good, I kind of just went with it. And at that point in time in my life was when I kind of grasped the fact that, like, to me, life is all about like feeling. I do things based off of how I feel, how it makes me feel,
It's
how
like
I feel when
Cancer
I'm doing
moon.
it. You know, like, I can't, if I'm not feeling it, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and if I do feel it, I like want to do it. Like, you know, it's like I don't know. I base life off of feeling. So it felt good. And I was like, you know, like, maybe it was a sign too. Like, I was reading The Alchemist at the time.
Word. That's up there.
Yo, that's such a good book. That's one of my, like, that book has shaped my life in so many ways, I feel. And especially at that time, like, I used to feel so lost. And I feel like once I gave everything up, like basketball, all the things like everybody told me I was supposed to be doing, I kind of just found what I was supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Or what I was supposed to be doing kind of find me. Like, we met each other halfway, like, without even knowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Did you, so that first shoot that you did, while they were shooting, before, like, all the pictures came out and like everyone was like, oh, okay, it was a good shoot, everything came out great, like, you felt good while you were doing it?
Yeah, like, I felt great, like, but in the beginning I was nervous. I was like, damn, I'm so nervous in my head. And it was like, once me and the photographer started shooting, I just felt comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's something I really like about modeling, or like, you know, being part of like anything that requires a visual, because I feel like it, especially if you don't know the person, it requires you to like be able to create that chemistry. Like, like immediately. You know?
And for it to be the best chemistry, you gotta like open up and actually be you.
Yeah, like everybody in the room has to be vulnerable in some sense, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's cool.
It kind of makes me think about how, like, even starting this podcast, right? So this was before I ever started the podcast. We talked about this before, I had to like stop lying. Now, I've never been a liar, like what people probably think when they hear liar, but just on like a really simple note of where whatever I'm doing on my day-to-day, if it's not something that I really believe that I should be doing or that I want to be doing, I'm kind of lying to everybody in the room immediately, just because I'm doing that, right? It's like you've embodied some fake persona. It kind of makes me think about what you said with basketball, right? Like, there was already an inkling towards, you already knew that you didn't want to do it. I wonder if it was just gracious timing with the fact that you got vulnerable and open and did something that you did want to do. But there's, as good as you could have been at basketball, when you're modeling, if that's one of those no lie situations, right? One of those situations where it's just like, I'm only here because I want to be here, and because I thought it was interesting, and because I've always been interested in it. So even if I'm not the best or not where I want to be yet, I'm not lying about it. This is something that I'm like passionate about doing.
I don't think, that's a really good question, and I have like different parts to it. So I'm gonna start at the first part.
Okay.
So I do think with basketball, it came so natural to me that I was just naturally good at it. Like, I could take months off and get back into it, and it just, you know, kind of click, and it just happened. I think also, though, with that being said, I was always afraid of how good I could actually be. Like, and I can admit that now. So there was plenty of reasons why. Like, my dad was like a huge basketball player, and in our hometown he was good. So one thing he used to say to me when he would come to my games, like, either like super like faded, he'd be drunk, or like whatever the case may be, he's either like my number one fan, or he's my number one fan spazzing on the refs, or like he's on my back. Like, you know what I mean? It's like one or the other. But he would tell me like, you're ruining my reputation. And
you're ruining his reputation.
Yeah, and that criticism might help someone
Why?
else.
What was something?
Like, if he feels like I didn't like score enough, if I wasn't like playing to the way he felt I should have been.
He's kind of trying to live through you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I was his first child, so I kind of didn't really get treated like a girl. He kind of treated me like his son, like in more ways than one. You know what I mean? Which I didn't mind.
You got other brothers and sisters?
Now.
But then you didn't?
No, I was the only child, so
yeah.
I didn't necessarily mind because I enjoyed chilling with my father. Like, I think he's a big part of the reason why I fell in love with hip hop. Like, we can get into that after, but so I think I was always afraid of my potential because of things like you're ruining my reputation, or there was so many other great people around me that I didn't. At that age, I wasn't aware of the fact that, like, we can all be great. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to kind of dim your light for other people around you to shine kind of thing. And I feel like I fell into it so early and nobody made that obvious to me that I don't think the adults around me realized that the actions that I was doing wasn't because I couldn't. It was that I was hindering myself. You know what I mean? And nobody kind of tried to break it out of me. It was just like, I don't know. Point is, like, I recognize that now. So I do think basketball came supernatural. And then the modeling thing, I think that it came just from me breaking away from what everybody expected me to do. I don't think it was really, I think it was like divine timing, but not really like, I didn't know. Yeah. Like, you know, it wasn't premeditated. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? I just think that I was being rebellious, and that's where I was in a rebellious state, but I was also finding myself, and that's just where I found myself. And now with the whole lion thing, when I first started, like after I did that first shoot, I did a few more shoots, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I enjoy this. If I can do this every single day and make a living off of it, this is what I would do. And it doesn't even have to be me in front of the camera. If I could be on set and, like, I don't know, style someone else, creative, direct, anything, like, you know what I mean, I would enjoy doing that. So I was like, you know what, like, this is what I'm gonna do. But I was working at a call center, and then I had like other random 9-to-5 jobs and stuff, and people would ask me like, what do you do? And this goes to answering your question. I would always downplay what I was using my 9-to-5 to do. Like, I was using my 9-to-5 so that I can afford to model and stuff. But instead of saying I modeled, I would say I just work in a call center.
So the call center was the 9-to-5?
Yeah, I worked at a call center, and then I also worked in like retail.
Yeah.
Now I'm a server, but now if I'm at work, people will ask me now, like, what do you do when you're not here? Because you don't look like you belong here. And now I feel like because I carry myself, like, I live in that truth that, like, I am a model. Like, this is what I do. Everything else you see me do is only, like, gateways to get to my end goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't really try to, like, sugarcoat it anymore, or, like, I'm not afraid of saying it. So I think it radiates. So now people get it, or they see it without me having to say it.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
That makes, so... There's a couple things that I thought when you were going through that. One of them was like, so the hindering yourself part. I, like, when talking about myself at least, like, deep down feel like there are times that I'm hindering myself, almost like a scared of success thing. And I think that ultimately we could go on for hours and hours and dive into the psychology behind that and what the fuck happened when I was a little kid. That probably is why that I think that way. But more importantly, when you're playing basketball versus when you're modeling, if you always kind of knew in the back of your mind that basketball wasn't something that you wanted to do anymore, but modeling was one of those things that you were actually interested in, it would make a lot of sense to say, like, that you're hindering yourself more around basketball than you are around modeling. It may still take effect on both of those things and play a role from whatever reason that you do that in the first place. But one thing's for sure is that you'll probably do it a little bit more when it comes to basketball than you would do for modeling.
For sure.
So it's almost like, especially if it's something you're naturally good at, which both modeling and basketball you were, where it's like, if you already know that you don't want to play basketball, it's going to be really easy for you to make up excuses to not be your best. Even if it's required of you to do, like, go to practice, do 2-a-days, whatever, you could still go. But deep down, if you know that you don't want to do it, it's going to be easy not to do that.
Yeah.
So a lot of where I think you and I both intersect with, like, where we're at now is, okay, you found a few things that you are passionate about, that you do like and that you do want to do. Okay, so here comes that next battle of hindering yourself for doing that, right? Because when you're in the arts in any way, shape, or form, you already know the struggle that comes with having a job just to pay for the art that you want to do.
Yeah.
If the art that you want to do isn't going to be profitable off the rip, or, you know, at least for a long, long time, that means day after day of still doing what you want to do, right? It's really easy to still bog yourself down with just the simple fact that it's not the thing making your living. And in order to make the living, you need to show up somewhere else for X amount of hours a day and week and do that. It makes it a lot harder to then throw in time for your passions, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then on top of it, you still have everything else that you're trying to learn and evolve from when you were a child.
It definitely gets for sure. It gets tough. I have like this past year, I've had super high highs and like super low lows because of that reason. Like, and I also, I'm learning to like deal with it because I don't think it's gonna stop. Like,
I don't either.
I mean? Like,
and you know what? That really fucking sucks.
Yeah,
really fucking sucks.
I don't think it's gonna stop. I think even when I move to New York next week, like, I'm gonna be so excited for what like opportunities are gonna unfold once I get there.
Yeah.
But I know eventually I'm gonna end up hitting an obstacle where I'm gonna end up feeling low again. I'm gonna have to like pick myself out of it. So I'm learning to like find a balance in between like feeling those lows, but like sitting in those lows. Like, I don't want to ignore them
and
like,
executing in those lows.
I want for sure that too. Like, I don't want to ignore them.
Because the worst thing to do is to sit in them. Because if you're just sitting, and even like we talked about this the first time that we met, where it was like, I told you, I think one of the bigger lessons that I'm meant to learn in this lifetime, whatever people believe in, is that it's like, okay, so when shit isn't going right, when there's bills or issues with family, friend, whatever it is, when things aren't going right, that not basketball, modeling, that thing that you know is something that you're more meant to do, right? Executing during that shit time. And we can do it because we can go to work at a job that we know is not modeling or podcasting or anything else that we want to do and get it done. And you show, and the funny thing happens too, where it's like, and because I'm in restaurant right now too, where it's like you could go in and there can be a lot of bad, horrible shit on your mind. It could be a bad day. But right around the time that rush starts ending, you do just naturally feel a little bit better. And I think it's like this reward system on getting through something that you didn't want to do, which is just another lesson that everything that's really important that you need to do in your life is gonna be suffering. Suffering will be involved. But when you just stew in the bullshit and you're just caught up in it, you could end up not leaving your bed and you've done nothing but to benefit yourself in any other way, even though you had all this time and because you're thinking about the rest of the world's issues. So for me, it's really fine tuning, like, okay, adding some action into getting up, and
you need a balance for sure.
It's all about the balance. Yeah. And I really don't think that the struggling part is going to stop, which sucks. So like when you're smarter and more aware, so like real quick, like on 2018 for me, I've had like a rough ending to the year. This right here, what you and I are doing, is a great example of executing while shit's all not right. Because shit's really all not right. But just the fact that I'm sitting and have a conversation with you right now does make it better, and I am executing in that work. But I was talking to Nick and Al. Al's my little brother, the one who painted that. And Al was saying like he was struggling too, but how like this year some of the best shit in his life had ever happened. And I had to like take a step back, and I'm sure with your Cancer moon you could relate. Like I do feel so much, right? Like I am empathetic, or to whatever degree. Like I feel things a lot. So to be on a day where everything is like shit, and then to look back at 2018 and go, wait a second. Like the realizations and epiphanies that were put into action that got me here, although it is crazy and hectic right now, this has been one of the better, more eventful years of my life. Like maybe I had other years where it didn't go as low for as long, but the highs and what was good about it and the lessons I learned did not even add up.
For sure. It's weird because, like, it's weird that I feel like that conversation is being had with, like, different parties of people who aren't even connected. And, like, I guess you and I are here to make the connection. But
Yeah.
I was with a group of ladies if it wasn't last week, it was, like, 2 weeks ago. And the reason why we were all together is because they want to make a platform for women in the industry, but also just Boston creatives, period, where everybody can, like, be in the same space, share the same space, network, and also build off one another, so that Boston can be a place where creatives, like, don't feel like they have to leave to, like, you know, make their dreams happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like a great group of women. It's all women. It's, like, awesome. Like, you know, it's most of them work at Bodega. Not most of them.
Oh yeah,
a few
you
of them
brought
work
them
at
up
Bodega.
before.
Yeah, and I think it's cool what they're trying to do. They did this panel for her by Bodega, probably like last month sometime, and they kind of just been building from there. And I think it's gonna be awesome. So
it's called For Her.
No, it's called her.
Her.
Yeah, her Bodega.
Okay.
So
what did they do?
So at the panel, they basically had they had five women basically talk about their jobs in the industry and, like, things they want to do, their goal.
All fashion related?
Yeah, fashion related. Some of them worked for, like, Reebok, or, you know, some just had a studio where they were, like, you know, doing their own thing, or, like, sharing their own, like, personal goals, or, like, their thoughts on, like, their thoughts for women in the industry, or, like, you know, things like that. So I can't really say personally, like, what everyone's personal goals are, but it's more so about creating a platform. So, you know, it was actually really cool. I think I can actually connect you with them too if you ever want to speak with them. Like, that'd be really cool. So we were all talking, and I was having a conversation with one of the girls who was there. Her name was Jasenia, and we were talking about moving to New York. And she was like, yeah, you know, like, the conversation has kind of stemmed from there. And I was like, you know, this year has been, like, a year. But I feel like every year that comes, I'm always like, you know, this year is going to be my year. Like, you know what I mean? But I really feel this time when I say it for 2019, like, it feels different. Like, I don't know. It doesn't.
In the gut.
Yeah, it doesn't just. And actually, Maya.
It's not romance language.
Yeah, like, Sprat was in this conversation too. It was like every other year I said it in a way where I was, like, trying to make myself believe it, because that's what I wanted. But this time I kind of just feel it. It's like, I don't even have to say it. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like this year is gonna be great, only because 2018 was like. It was like. I had really low lows, but I feel like every time I came out of a low, I planted a seed. Like, you know, like, I was able to, like, plant those seeds for 2019.
Yeah.
And I was able to, like, acknowledge the fact of, like, I was able to grow from, like, some of the things that I felt was holding me back. Like, whether it's acknowledging, like, the people in my life, like, my surroundings, how I'm spending most of my time, what I could be doing otherwise with my time, my thoughts, like, being impeccable with my word and, like, the things that I think, or, like, even something as simple as going to sleep with certain things on my mind. Like, I try to go to sleep with a clear mind, not really holding on to anything from the day, not really, like, having these bad moments, but sitting in them, just kind of coming out of them and figuring out how I can, like, I'm going to go through it again, but, you know, be more prepared, or, I don't know, level up now that I'm not really so down. Like, you know what I mean? Just, I feel like all the seeds were planted. So I feel like now, 2019, if I stay disciplined, like, self-discipline is, like, my New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
So if I stay disciplined, I think that they'll all blossom the way I expect them to.
It makes sense too, and the seed metaphor is a good metaphor, because, like, you know how you were saying this is the year that it just, like, you kind of, it feels right, like there is a gut thing involved where it actually does feel right. Well, on the other years where you say to yourself, like, oh, this is going to be a good year, and you're more just telling yourself that's, like, hopefully you could draw it towards you. It's almost like you're in a mind state where you know there needs to be change. You're a farmer, and you know that you need to grow a crop. This is going to be a good year, and nothing even sprouted yet. But then the years that you do a little bit of work and you do, you know, you use all the right nutrients and you plant the seeds at the right times and you learn from the lessons on what to do and what not to do. It's like, okay, like here's a year where like I at least know that what I've learned and put into growing in the past, what works and what doesn't. Here's one where like I'm finally applying a little bit more of what I know is needed in order for it to work out. And then it's almost like turn on the gut. Like there's the gut feeling where it's almost like fighters when they train. It's like you'll have it. Seldomly do you find a loser who really did all the work, like watch the other person's fighting videos and know what their style is, get the right trainers, like tackle their weaknesses and go after making it better, etc. Like when you really do all of the work, then there's like this little, I don't know, this little voice in you where obviously it's going to be better than it was before. Like you needed to learn and go through having several shitty crops before you could ever have a good one, and knowing where to plant what and etc. Like those seeds have actually have work around it. It's not just like you're putting it in the soil and hoping everything works out, which was probably a couple years ago, right? Like, for sure. Fingers crossed.
It's always harder to do what you need to do. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that sometimes you would know, like, damn, I need to do this, or like I need to like rid of this, and it's never easy, but I've learned like intuition is real. Like it's so real, and I feel better if I let go than hold on to something I'm not supposed to. Like it might hurt, but you know what I mean? It hurts. It hurts holding on knowing I shouldn't. Like no matter what it is.
It's extra weight.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So much heavy, extra weight.
Like, it's so heavy. And I learned that like I can't expect the things that I want to happen the way I feel, and like speaking of intuition, like the way that I feel or foresee it to happen, holding on to things that the universe is clearly trying to tell me to let go of. Like it's kind of like now you have to take it. It's like an ultimatum kind of.
Yeah, there's
like, take a pick of what you care about more. Like you know what I mean, or like who you love more, and or what you love more. Even so, like you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like
you could really love something or someone or whatever, and it be detrimental to like what you're trying to do, like the bigger picture, you know. And it's difficult to walk away sometimes, but
well,
I'm
remember
glad I'm
the first time
where I can.
Well, yeah, and you're about to be making a move which cleans like a nice clean slate, like visually to your being, just as much as it is like in every other way of actually making new connections and everything. You really do get a new slate with everything that you learned about growing those seeds last year.
For sure.
You know, and then the first time that we met, I think I'd brought up where, I don't know where I heard this. I think it was like some channeler, which makes it a little bit more woo-woo, but Paul Selig, I think. But either way, he had brought up how he's just like, so think of any time that you just know, like, I just know I shouldn't be in this relationship anymore. I just know I need to get a new job. I just know that basketball isn't right for me. I just know that there's something more passionate, whatever it is. So think about a time you just know, and then think about other times in your past where you think, right? And there's, and there's a clear difference. That intuition, that gut is associated with the I knows. So then it's to say that when you have those feelings of I know, that you need to apply action to those I know.
Like,
and like, so like for enlightenment on any place of the spectrum of enlightenment, it's like you're gonna get a light and you're gonna get this ability to just know. You're gonna just know certain things about what's right and wrong for your own life, how to act, etc.
For sure.
You're just gonna keep carrying that weight
especially
and shit when you don't act on it.
Especially if you're a meditative person, you know what I mean? Because those things are gonna be made clear.
You meditate, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when did you get into meditating?
Around 18, 19.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was your practice like?
I read The Alchemist, and like that's why that book is so huge to me. Like it's so huge to me because of that. Yeah, it was crazy. So I started reading that book, and then I started just doing small researches. Like when he like got to the Oasis, well, first all the obstacles like working in the store and things like that before he even left to you know, while he was trying to get there. And then he got there, and then the ending ended with like him finding like all these powers that he was like, all this treasure he was out searching for was really in himself all this time. You know what I mean? And I was never a religious person. Like I was never really a religious being. My mom, like my family is my grandmother's Muslim. My family was originally Muslim. My mom and my siblings didn't grow up having to follow it, so I didn't have to follow it. My mom is a Christian, so she would always ask me to go to church and stuff, but she never really made me
Your
go.
mom did?
Yeah, like I got to a point where it was like, Mom, I don't want to go. Like, you know, she never forced it on me, but my mom has always viewed me as like her different child anyways. So I'm sure she knew that like I believed in something. It just wasn't necessarily what she wanted me to believe in. You know what I mean? I couldn't really make the connection like ever. Like, I don't know. I just, you know, so at that time I was in such a dark space. Like, I don't think it's weird because like what I had to tell myself this year, I'm sorry, this is a side note, is that
cool.
I have to learn to not feel my best when I'm feeling my worst creatively. Like at that time, like I speak of that time, say that like, you know, I was in such a dark space. Everything was like so bad. I felt lost, but I felt so good. Like, you know what I mean? Like Lia felt free. Like that girl, like that girl at that time was so free. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I was reckless. I didn't give a fuck about what anybody had to say. Like, I don't care how you feel about it. Like, this was me, raw, me. Like, this is it. Like, you know what I mean? And I miss that girl sometimes. Not because I don't feel like I'm me. I just feel like I've grown a lot from that girl. But now there's definitely some things that I need to, like, rid of just to get back to my innocence. I feel like that girl was like Lia in her innocence, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think as time goes on, like as like we do grow, we still need to like get back to that sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like hold on to that sometimes at least, like, you know. So yeah.
Reminds me of the story about the prodigal son. You ever heard that? Like real quick summary of it is just a couple brothers, and one brother kind of always does everything right and kind of lives the way that he's supposed to, but the other brother has to like go off and fuck up a bunch of times and, you know, travel and learn and screw up and like before it kind of can mold him back to what's actually important. And for one person, they don't need to go and fuck up and go through all those things. They just kind of always knew. But for the other one, they were never going to ever be able to get back to that like more innocent Lia until they went out and fucked up and recognized and learned from experience, right? Like kind of jumping back to your point about experience.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel, and I feel like me, even stuff like, I was always such a gypsy. Like I lived in so many different states, and I didn't have a job when I was doing any of this. I didn't have like any real plan either. I was just like, oh, well, don't want to stay here, so I'm gonna go here. Like, you know, I just kind of did it. Like I lived in Daytona for a short amount of time. I lived in South Carolina as well, added to that. I've lived in like New York before. I lived in Ohio for a short amount of time, like in passing. I moved to LA for a short amount of time. Like, you know, I just was always like a gypsy. My mom, my grandmother called me that all the time. But I did learn, though, one thing I noticed with this move is why I say I need to get back to like my innocence, or like that Lia, is because I wasn't going to move to New York until the end of February, like early March. And I felt like one day I like went on a trip and I was talking to like these two girls I know in New York, named Sydney and Joe. And I was talking to them, and like as we were having conversation, something in me just clicked where I felt like that girl. Like I felt like, oh, Lia, you know what I mean? And I was like, you have the money. Like you might not have like all the money you would have wanted to move with, but if you wanted to move, you can move. And you have a job, you can transfer your job. So why aren't you doing it? just because you're not secure. And then I thought about the book with Alan Watts, and I'm like, nothing in life is secure. Like, nothing. Like, literally nothing in life is secure. So I was like, you're like being so careful now because of all the backlash you got throughout all the years about all the other moves you made. But I tell everybody, like, there was plenty of people in my life who made so many comments on the fact that I moved around a lot, or that, like, I would be doing this and then, like, 4 months later, they don't even know where I live. Like, you know what I mean? That's just how it was. And there was even people close to me who would make comments, and they weren't directly to me, but I knew they were made. You know what I mean? Yeah. But one thing I've always held dear about, like, those things was that, one, I felt fearless. Like, I was never afraid to do it. Mostly the people I was, like, surrounded by was afraid to do it. Like, they wouldn't. Like, you know what I mean? And every time I did leave, I always came back feeling way better than when I left. Like, I've always acquired something, whether it was, like, different cultures I was exposed to, different people, like the environment I was around, like
even if just to learn maybe what you had wrong and thought that I'm not saying this happened to you, but sometimes, like, it's just as important to learn that the urge to go and do something, why that was a mistake.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
And, like, then, like, it's ingrained in you.
Yeah.
There's a lesson for the next crops, right? The next seed that you plant.
Always. And because everything wasn't always smooth. So I also learned, like, you know, how to go about things better. But this time I went about things better. But I realized that I was holding it off so long because I was also going about it fearful. Like, I now felt this fear I never felt before, and it was weird. It was, like, so unfamiliar to me. That's why I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know. Something clicked, and I was like, I know I can do it, so I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm making this move happen, and it happened so smoothly. Like,
that's when you know that's how the meant to be stuff.
Yeah, I was like, you know, like, I made the right decision. Like, it happened so smooth, and I just feel so good about it. Like, the space is tiny, but I feel like when I get there, I'm going to feel like I'm in a mansion. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because,
like, you're free.
Yeah, just everything is there. So with that being said, the spiritual, like, how I got into meditating and stuff is because at the time I was like staying in, like, I would, like, be riding around, and I had this, you seen Tatum Fall.
Yeah.
I had, you know, the red BMW that he had got Mitch when he got out of jail.
Yeah.
I didn't have the drop top, but I did have it. I had that car with the sunroof on it, and I had, like, got some rims on it. It was, like, my first car. I ended up getting it dirt cheap too. It was crazy. I bought it for like $800. Really? I don't even know. Yeah, it was crazy. So that wasn't my first car. My first car ever was a 1962 Mustang Pinto, and it was, like, out of a junkyard, sitting on flats, no paint job. It was, like, rusting through. I, like, bondoed all the, like, doors and everything together myself. I, like, did all the bondo and everything, and then I gave it to one of my neighbors and let him paint it. And I put new tires on it, everything. I was, like, borderline restoring a car. I just didn't know how to do engine work. And then I ended up leaving for school, and my dad wouldn't let me keep it parked in front of his house. So I thought, like, if I sell it to a junkyard, it'll get trashed, and it'll feel better than seeing someone else drive around in it. But when I brought it to the junkyard, they gave me $200 for it, and then I see the person driving around Springfield in it all the time. But it's, like, hooked up now. Like, it sucks. I'm sick. Every time I'm sick. But I used to really want to go to trade school to work on cars. Like, when I'm old and just need a hobby, I'm going to restore cars. Yeah. That's been a goal for me since high school. Right. So it happens.
Yo, someone in Springfield definitely would take a $200 car and fucking try to pimp it the fuck out like that.
Pissed. I did so much work on that car too. I was so pissed off. But I was like, I would be driving around. After that, I ended up coming home, and I had, like, that BMW. It was hooked up. I'd be, like, driving around in it, and I'd be listening to, like, I listened to very, like, lyrical, like, rap. I listened to a lot of Erykah Badu, like, Jill Scott, things that kind of, like, you know, I'm very 90s, but I'm also very, like, soulful. Yeah. Like, you know, so I'd be in the car, like, rolling up my blunts and just smoking, and I'm like, I don't know. I just felt like this, like, connection, and I really can't put it into words. That's why I say I've always felt life was like a feeling thing, and I've always moved off a feeling. But after reading that book, I don't know. I just felt pulled towards, like, certain stuff. Like, I started doing research to learn about chakras and, like, you know, my energy points within my body. I started like caring more about food and like the things I was eating or the things I was putting in my body, like putting dead things and like.
And were you still a meat eater at that time?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would try to be like cautious about it. I also did shrooms once, and I felt like I was feeling things or having thoughts I'd never had before, which was weird. And it could have just been the fact that I was tripping.
That makes complete sense.
I could have just been tripping, you know what I mean? But
people like to toss it up for just tripping, but it's something real.
Yeah, I haven't like, you know, all these things were finding me. I wasn't even necessarily looking for them. But when I was moved to, or like when they were brought to my attention, I would like do more research on them, and it just made sense to me. Like, you know, I was like, energy, like they speak of like my mom would speak of God as like this entity, like he can't be broken down, destroyed, all these things. It's the same thing as energy to me. Like,
it is,
you know,
yeah.
Like neither can it, and it's something that I can feel, whether it's good or bad, no matter what. Like it can rub off on me. It can, like, you know, there's.
Well, you know, like the whole like you got to see the light. Like even the word enlightened, like you need to see the light. Like naturally, you kind of associate light with good and dark with evil. You know, light is energy, and God is in all things, right? I would not say that I'm Christian, but I definitely believe in God. It's just the way that I personally would describe God is more along the lines of what you're getting into than, you know, Jesus Christ and his dad.
Like I feel like all of us are God-like, you know what I mean? And like we all are like God bodies, like walking around, and it's like this is just a vessel, you know what I mean? Like we're just kind of. Do you believe in the afterlife?
I personally do, but I think it's kind of. I actually threw on Many Lives, Many Masters. I told you about the book the first time we met, but I actually think that I believe in reincarnation, and then I think that I've heard one time that you have like you have lifetimes to understand self, and then once you understand self, you have like a lifetime of the people, and then I think the next one is you have a lifetime of basically getting to your own nirvana, like a Buddha or something would, like that. And I think after that lifetime, it's not until you go through many lives and learn a bunch of different lessons in each life with other people, etc., that you get to a point where then you become one of those masters. And then so my version of the afterlife isn't really until you've learned so many lessons and evolved so highly that you are someone who's kind of gone through every struggle, and throughout all different lifetimes you've learned it all, and then you get put into that dimension or space or whatever it is.
The dimensions, yeah. I haven't. Do you feel like you've tapped into other dimensions?
100%. I mean, I've done a lot of mushrooms, I've done a lot of acid, but more specifically, I've done DMT, and I've gone to the jungle with a shaman and done ayahuasca a handful of times.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like there's, you know, what is a trip, and you also, like, you know what is not.
Yeah,
and when there are,
when
there are certain things that are not a trip within your trip, but it's so real that you're encountering other beings or spirits or whatever. Like, you got to be careful who you talk to about this shit, right? Because they'll get quick on calling somebody crazy. But the fact of the matter is whether it's all bullshit or not, like, we are only defined by our experience. We're only sitting at a table, and this table is here because we could touch it and feel it. So if anything else happens in any other experience, it's just as real as anything else.
For sure.
You know, if it happened for you. So I do think that we are all consciousness vessels. Like, the brain somehow is this, like, the pineal gland is somehow mapped to like a different, you know, level of consciousness and dimension, and we really are just a vessel.
And all that,
yeah. And I did DMT, not like in ayahuasca form, but one time I did DMT, and when you can see that everything, like, and and you know it's not part of like your trip when you compare it to like acid or mushrooms, but when you can see that everything has this perfection of geometry, like there's some painters and artists that will come out and show it, but like for example, like that bamboo is alive. Now you and I look at it and it's not moving. That bamboo is consistently in flow state, right? It's looking for the light and it's going towards it, and it's not thinking about should I go left or go right. It's just going. It's just always. There was a time that I took DMT where like you could actually see the geometry in the energy around it and in everything. You could see how your energy affect things, and that was like the huge like pull the curtain away. It was like the first time that I had ever it was the closest thing to a religious experience that I'd ever have, where it's just, you know, what you're looking at is not, it's not fake. Plus there's thousands of accounts and books written on it where like everyone sees the same thing.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's definitely quantum physics.
And it's, I read this book. It's you're a human being having you're a spiritual being having a human experience or something like that. I forget the name of the book. I'm gonna have to get the exact title of it, but it's so good. But it taps into how there's 12 different dimensions, but there's even more than that, and it taps into like like tetrahedrons and like all the other, you know, things with quantum physics, which I need to read the book again because quantum physics it can be hard for me to grasp at times.
Like anybody. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's not one of those things where I can personally read one time and be like, oh, I got it. Like, you know what I mean? I have to, but it was a good book. And I don't know, that would be great for me to, like, I feel like that would be something that I would enjoy experiencing. There's Osho. I read a lot of Osho books, and he has like a resort where you go, and it's a meditation resort.
Is it Japanese?
Yeah. It's you go and you basically, I want to say, I'm trying to think of where the resort is. That's where I'm drawing a blank. But you go and you basically, like, you find enlightenment with, you know, on this resort with masters, and like, you know, there's monks there who like have given up speech for, you know, their enlightenment and things like that. But I would love to experience that. I'm sure it's expensive, but long term, I feel like that'd be something cool to do. Like you said, you were with a shaman in the jungle. Like, I would love to do.
Film a podcast with them too. It's the only one that I haven't released yet because I'm waiting to make a full one where I have my buddy who speaks Spanish, because our translator spoke Spanish, but his English was weak. So there were certain times that when the shaman would give me his reply, and he would translate his reply, I knew that he didn't tell the shaman the question the right way. So instead of dropping the podcast where everyone needs to fill in these blanks for themselves, I want to have my buddy that speaks Spanish in the room, another friend that's very curious about ayahuasca, where I'll edit it in. We'll watch it together, but then I'll edit that in. So you're watching the one in the jungle, and then you're watching a conversation about it, and it kind of encompasses everything about everything about ayahuasca.
That's dope.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that for sure. I think this would be like a good segue into the philosophy piece as well, like the Alan Watts thing that I had put over Nick's beat too.
Yeah.
But so if you're down, do you want to like listen through that? Like I could play that out. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of like bubbling to the surface that we're talking about that he philosophizes on, politics on, or whatever.
I'm down.
So you're down?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, we could it's 8 minutes, so we could sit and listen. You want to burn?
Yeah, I'm down for that too.
Okay, we could definitely do that. Yeah, there was one time that I did. So my brother. So actually, I wanted to tell you this first. One time, my brother told me about this story, and it was like some guy searching for enlightenment. So he went to some monastery or whatever, some monk. He was looking for like a guru or a teacher, and I think the guru had said to him like, "Okay, so you want to like learn about enlightenment, you want to become enlightened, like it's very, very simple. All you have to do is don't think about monkeys for the next 24 hours. And of course, he's like, oh, that's fine. Like, I'm like,
I don't think about monkeys.
Yeah, but of course it plagues his mind after that, right? So it's like, it's this funny little thing of where what you want to accomplish is so simple yet so difficult too. It's like the mastering of the conversation within your own head. Like the only thing that you'll ever really need to learn is how to have a conversation with yourself, how to master your own mind.
Calm it, quiet it. Do you ever feel like sometimes you're too hyper focused on what you want?
All the time.
You're blocking
I feel like I was born that way.
Yeah, I feel like...
Which is good in a lot of ways. Produce a lot of good. Yeah, and there's some times where you kind of look or you have a conversation with people, how do you not fucking get that? Right? And it's so obvious to you, but at the same time, I'm a fucking insomniac some nights and I cannot shut my head off, right? Like I need to... It goes right back to balance and learning that piece about balance.
And I find that sometimes I'm so hyper focused on the things that I want or like my end goal that I'm not appreciating the small moments the way I wanted, like, or the way I should. Yeah. Like these small moments were just things I wanted last year, and now I'm not even paying attention to them because now that I have them, there's something else I want. Because I'm so hyper focused on like the bigger picture, then I'm bypassing all these small moments that I should be paying attention to. Like, I feel like not acknowledging them can hold you back because you're not, I don't know, I don't feel like you're flowing still, but it's kind of like, I don't want to be too forceful if I'm making sense. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like...
What do you mean by not acknowledging them?
That I just, like, so there was a time where I had did this shoot and I was like so excited to do this shoot. Like that was something I wanted. Like I would like go to sleep. It was something I would manifest. Like this is something I want. And then I got there to do it. And by the time it came time to do the shoot, I was manifesting something else. You know what I mean? So now I'm like...
What?
Like what else was I manifesting? Like now I want to do a campaign.
Yeah.
Like that's something I'm like hyper focused on right now.
That's Ram Dass. Actually, I let Parlay, I think she was episode 6. I let her borrow my Be Here Now book, but like that's the point, right? Be Here Now.
I read that.
You read that?
It's blue.
Yep. Yeah. It starts off with white pages, goes to brown, and it's like
that's a great book.
Real good book. You know, real good book.
And that's what I'm saying. Like there's so many things that like I wanted that when they came, I like didn't really sit in the fact that I got it the way I feel I should have. Like I feel like, you know, I should have sat in it and really like soaked in what was happening, just so that when I'm trying to manifest these other things I want, I can only imagine how I'll feel then. And like it really be like a pure feeling, not just how.
But then even in that thought, you're thinking ahead to some, you know what I mean? Some like really high enlightened people, they say that like if you watch them do things like specific monks or even what's that fucking I don't know why I'm forgetting. Either way, that they do things so effortlessly, and it's because like they're really keened in on just doing that one thing. I heard this story where it was like this monk or something like told a group of people way back in the day, like where 100 shillings in China or some shit was worth a lot of money. He's like, all right, like I'll give this money to whoever can tell me that they can look at like that tree and see it straight. Right, so then you got a group of people like laying on the ground, looking like trying to see the tree straight, but it's really just like not about analyzing like what you're looking at. It's just looking straight at it, right? And I think what you see probably when you do like a runway walk, or when you see someone like killing on the guitar up on stage, or someone freestyling, they're staring off into just nothingness. It's like they're staring at their inspiration. It's like they're looking at it straight. There's nothing burdening them while they're doing it. And I'm trying to perfect that too. Like that's one of those things where we said before, like I'd like to think there won't be any problems in 2019, but I know there will. I'm gonna struggle with that
Me
forever.
Too, for sure.
But I'm constantly in the shower, like just wash your fucking hair. Don't be thinking about this and that. Just do it, right? That's why, like, as I got older, I'm like, damn, Nike really fucking had it, right? like, just do it.
They were onto something. They probably didn't even know. Yeah, for sure. I try. I'm just like, you know, I try to be more present. I find that, like, with, like, it's so many things are distractions. Like, you know, you get distracted by so many things, and I try to be just more present.
That's one of the reasons why I started this. Because if no one cares what I'm talking about or what you're talking about or what you do or what I do, if there's one thing that for the small group of people that are going to watch this, like, can see, and that, like, if you want to lead by example, that I want people to see, it's two people being present in the moment, like first and foremost. And there's many other things after that, but that's what you and I are right now, for sure. And what we're doing, right? Like, and one of the, I don't want to say like it's helped me, like if it's giving me any boost to ego or anything like that, but one thing that I have noticed is when I talk with other people, I've noticed how much better I've gotten with being present and in the moment. Sometimes by just seeing how long it takes other people to get. There's I feel like everyone deserves a shot to like give them enough time so that they could be present, be open. That's why I did the philosophy thing on the beat, and that, you know, it's part of getting them to be more present and in the moment. But even this past Christmas Eve, I went and saw all of my father's family, and I realized I have two uncles. They're always right there with you, from the hello to what's going on to deeper conversation. They're right there. They're in tune. They could turn on like that. Now they're dramatically different uncles. But then other people in the family, I would realize I'd start the conversation. Here you are, you're my aunt, my cousin, whatever. And I could see the hesitancy to, or whatever the word would be, to like, they're not really there yet. But what gets them there is you being there. So if you stay there, even when you recognize that they're not there yet, and you keep being sincere and you keep being open, because I like to think of it as like, okay, Lia and I are talking, right? Fucking whatever beeps, makes noise, whatever. Like, I just stay right here with you. Like, you and I are talking and I'm in there.
It's like being locked in.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
A lot of people like throwing up shields or like their tended to responses, like, here's what I want to, like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then they kind of back off. They don't tune in, if you will. Like, eye contact is huge on that. Now, everyone's different with eye contact.
Sometimes and like, even, it drives me nuts. Like, yeah. When people don't give me eye contact, I really feel like they're not listening to me.
I feel you.
You know?
But it's more like they're just not in tune there yet. It's not that they're not listening. And sometimes the only way to get them to really tune in and to listen is to be okay with the fact that they're not there yet. Because first and foremost is they're used to the reaction of other, even if they don't know that they're causing the reaction, they're used to people just tuning right back out right after.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're just throwing these things up as like surface level, and it's like, if you show them you care a little bit more and you want to dive in a little bit more about that and relate it back, active listening, relate it back to something that you know, right? Then they'll open up. Yeah. And when that happens, that's a fucking beautiful thing, right? It's almost like the art. There's a TED Talk, the art of starting a dance party, right? Once one person like actually gets vulnerable and open enough to go out there and someone else joins, it just all starts. But up until then, everyone's just kind of
standing on the wall,
standing
talking
around.
And
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I have a best friend who drives me nuts because I feel like he's not listening to me sometimes. Like, and I'm like the friend who's like, I don't want to say deep because I don't.
No, you are.
I don't try to be that.
You are.
But I don't want to be that annoying friend. Like, you know what I mean? I try not to be like that annoying friend, but I'm definitely like, if I could be his subconscious voice, that would be me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, like, you know, like, I don't know, advice wise and things like that. Sometimes he'll ask me stuff and I know it's probably not the answer he wants, but I feel like it's the answer he needs to hear. So I'll tell him. But sometimes I feel like he's not like listening to me. Like, he'll be, I don't even know, like his phone won't even ring, but he'll unlock it and like look at it, or like unlock it, scroll up, look down, then go on Instagram and be doing other stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're not even listening to me. He's like, no, I am. I hear you. And he'll respond, but it's like, it drives me absolutely nuts. And I'm just
stays surface.
Yeah, it's like, you gotta, I learn, like, he's a great person at that. You know what I mean? It's just, I feel like when you say like locking in, like, and you realize that the more I talk to him, the more I feel like he's drawn to what I'm saying, as opposed to just basically what you just said. Like, the more you show you care or you try to get it, like, you know, even though they're not there yet, they eventually, like, you know, they take heed to what you're saying. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So the first time we met, I brought this story up, and it's worth telling again because I'm such a big advocate of it. The moment, like, you say to him, but you're playing on your phone, you're not listening, right? There's a brick to a wall, right? Or even a wall, right? Which is just like, from his perspective, like, I don't know, maybe not she's hating on me, but she's criticizing me at some point. And everyone's different with criticism, right? Even if you don't mean it to be criticism. So I found when communicating with people, especially if it's something that's very important, I have to, and here's a time where eye contact leaves, right? It's almost like you need eye contact to show that you're in it. But when someone is speaking of sincerity about something that doesn't have to do with you and it's just their own thing, they'll look in a different direction. Once again, they'll look straight at it, right? They'll look into whatever. So I always bring up the example of my brother and I. So my brother is about to turn 26, or 3.5 years difference. I'm older. And he had an issue with, like, finding having his creative space. He was living at home. He was going to like art school, right? Like, if he went into art school, even though he could access it at all hours, it's a long drive, and then you're in a spot where there might be 11 other people. You know how vibes rub off, etc. Not to mention, just not a good feeling of someone looking over your shoulder, right? He was still at home, so then you're forced to hear the shit going on in the house, bickering, or whatever the hell it may have been. And he was trying to figure out, like, he was really struggling with needing a creative space. And he's an artist, so you got to be in your own zone. Like, you can't pencil in that passionate time, the time when your geniuses show up. Yeah. And if you try to, and you're trying to deal with a fucked up creative space, it's very difficult. Yeah, so I thought, like, for a second, like, if he was telling this to, like, one of maybe my aunts that maybe has read me wrong or misunderstood me or didn't know how to communicate with me in the past, that, you know, they might say to him, oh, listen, you're so lucky. You have all these art supplies. You got easel, you got this and that. You have that studio, and you have access to that 24/7. You can go there. You actually get to go to school to be doing art. You should be lucky that you still live at home and that you don't need to pay rent and have a job that's going to, but that's just brick to brick to brick to wall. Like, you know, if you're not already at a certain level with somebody, right? So instead of saying any of that, even though it could all be true, right, and valuable, I was like, let me tell him about my situation, which is, I love doing hip hop. I love freestyling, right? I need to recite something 40 fucking million times before I ever get comfortable with it. And just the fact that the neighbors might be able to hear, or it's past 11 p.m., or I got a roommate that doesn't jive with me or anything like that. Like, yeah, Al, I told him, it took me 8 or 9 years. It took me 8 or 9 years of trying to fit in when I could, doing the things I was passionate about, finally being able to get open, collecting that work, struggling with not having a creative space, period, and still trying to do it. And just trying to make the best of what I actually did have. And I got a mic and I got this and that, but it took 8 or 9 years. Now, when you tell someone that versus telling them everything that they should be thankful for or lucky that they have, they're way more likely to go, like, shit, I'm on year 2. Like, they were able to do that. I see where they're coming from. Like, I could, you know, they're right. I should focus on that. They're more likely to tune into those good things and be conscious of those good things and not take them for granted, and take them the way that you wanted them to take them. If you had just been saying you should be grateful for it, right, and just embody it,
making them feel like they're being ungrateful.
Yeah, like, let me show you how I struggled with this, right? So I don't need to everything I want you to get out of this, you'll get out of it without me saying, just by me saying, listen, I see here's how I see where you're coming from. Here's how I struggled with it. Here's where, you know, where I am now versus where I never thought I would be, and had to deal with all this shit for all these years.
Right.
You know, they're more likely to tune in and listen, because you're never bricking up a wall. You're just getting extremely vulnerable. And I'm a big advocate on vulnerability is the biggest form of courage, for sure.
I agree. I agree with that so much. And I've just got comfortable like the last year or so being vulnerable, and I don't feel like I'm 100% there. I feel like when I start taking my acting classes and things when I get to New York, it'll help. You know, it'll help me. I'm naturally like, I'm not really, I'm a Leo. So I really do think of us as like we're cats. Like, you know what I mean? We kind of fill out a room before we feel like I'm kind of drawn to this person. So let me go. And
if you're a kid's booth, the way you be thinking to get to your destination is all.
Yeah, it's all over the place. Like, it can be, you know, I don't know. I can be very shy, but I'm not shy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like if approached properly on initial contact, I'm gonna respond comfortably. You know, I just feel like if I'm in a room full of people I don't know, I can be very like enclosed. It just kind of depends on like, you know. So I'm like trying to tap into being more like vulnerable and being okay with like, I don't know. I really admire people who can be in a room full of people and be okay embarrassing themselves. Like, I admire that so much. And it might even really not even be embarrassing, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I can do karaoke. I want to, but I haven't. Like, I think I've done it one time in Miami, and I haven't done it since.
Well, so all right, so on both of these, like the 2 points, and one of them being karaoke, I feel like it's easier for people to be themselves and be vulnerable, even in a room full of people that they don't know, when the rest of their life jives towards things that they're not lying or that they're telling themselves the truth about. Like, so an example would be, it's not like I'm playing basketball knowing that this isn't something that I want to be doing. So then when I'm in a room, it's not like I'm representing myself by something that I already like deep down know isn't right. So the more you live your life the way that you at least think that you should be living your life and being true, right? That at least if you're doing enough work to be evolving at a certain pace, maybe you know you're not the best, but you're doing the work and you are being true to yourself. I think it's easier to be more vulnerable and open because it's not like you're being open about any factors that you're lying to yourself or anyone else about.
For sure.
Now, the karaoke thing's a funny thing, right? Because I think about that as well. And I think the only time I ever did karaoke was like, I think I was half in the bag, and I did like Usher's like, I don't even know, one of his like love songs. That's
Usher's a classic though. That's a good pick.
Yeah, but still, now I could be completely cool with myself, but still not be open enough to karaoke because, like, you know, smarter people that take into account more variables and et cetera, like, they're going to be more concerned with what they're doing because you're aware of everything that could possibly go wrong. If karaoke's goal, even if not to be Usher or anybody else, is to sound good, and like if you thought of it like just having fun and singing the song and that was it, and like no one's thinking about how good people sound, then that's fine. But because we're factoring in that there's a level of like, the
fact that singing is not one of my
one of my
many talents.
Yeah, and like I don't like to showcase things that like that would almost be kind of like showcasing something that you were like being vulnerable about, something you were lying about. Like, you know, it's like in doing karaoke, if you know that you're not a good singer and you are like conscious of the fact that some people think like, oh, they should be sounding good right now, right? You're gonna think about how you're not. And that's gonna hinder your performance. You're gonna go to
hit one of those notes, and it might be your favorite note of the song, but you're gonna be like,
Yeah, but see, now make the room full of a bunch of people that you know every single one.
Yeah, and I'm with my homies,
and you're all having a good time. Then it doesn't matter. Why? Because none of them in the crowd sitting there, or at least not enough with the group and community that you feel comfortable with. There's not enough people out there that are gonna judge you negatively because you got enough homies there, people that it actually matters to. Then it's easier to go and do it and fuck up or whatever. It becomes just fun. The less community that you already have there that know what you're really all about, the less like almost like it takes the fun out of it. It becomes more anxiety ridden.
That's very true. That's true. I feel like because you're so hyper focused on everything else except the fact that you're just having a good time, like, you know. So
yeah,
for sure.
But when you got and community, right? Like that's such a huge thing. Like
it really is.
There's not too much. There is and there isn't. You find it in odd little pockets here and there, but the way that we grew and evolved and tribes and groups of people that you live, slept with, work with, like hunt with, etc. Like it's just that connection isn't there as much anymore. That's how I was talking about the Sebastian Junger tribe book about soldiers, maybe not necessarily because they did or saw fucked up shit coming back with PTSD, but almost it's like this gap in community. They come back and like the entire who they eat with, like go out, like when's the last time you had 5 people with you that even if you didn't like one of those 5 people, that it was still so crucially important to your survival that you work together with them, right? It's not even like you go and do a job, like that's not really survival, but I guess you could compare it to that. But you know, someone that you slept with, ate with, joked with, like you could be cool, you could laugh, you could fight, you could whatever, but it doesn't matter because you are going out and doing something where survival is the main key. And even if I don't like Lia, she's watching my 6, I'm watching the front, and I have to do my job, and she's got to do her job in order for either of us to live. So we give each other this like community pass of like vulnerability there.
I don't think I've ever been in that situation.
I know
I've been forced to like, not really forced, but I've chose to put like my ego aside or the fact of like my feelings aside to help someone that I strongly cared about. No longer care about them to that extent, but I put my ego aside to still be like a great person to them, which old Lia probably wouldn't have, only because I was so used to like resentment and shutting people out of my life when I felt, you know what I mean? Like, you hurt me? No. Like, you know what I'm saying? So do I feel like I would like to say that I could put like my feelings and ego aside to help whomever, but to that extent, like, you know what I mean? I don't even know if I'll ever have to experience that. Like that's a lot. Like that's heavy.
Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult. I'm lucky enough that over the course of the past 5 to 10 years and of planting seeds and figuring out how to do it the right way and doing different work and understanding what works and what doesn't, that now I could get to certain actions or certain situations in my life where I know when my ego is fucking with me. Not all the time. That's an ever-evolving thing. You know, I don't think until you're in that lifetime where it's just supposed to go to nirvana and you're alone, I don't think it'll ever be easy. But I do see when a little bit of ego pops up. Like, for example, I'm a server fucking assistant, right? I'm not even serving. I'm like bar back, basically busser, food runner at the restaurant. Now, when I left that job, I was making 6 figures. I ran a team. It was like a big sales organization. I'm selling to like enterprise companies. That, now I know where there's parts where you need the money and et cetera, but there's something about that I see my ego pop up with. I do, like when I left and I was okay with becoming a server assistant and getting a job at the bottom of the total. Now I still make probably about the same money you make serving, like because it's a bigger, higher class restaurant. Right now, even with all that being said, I could see other servers that feel the same way that I feel sometimes when I relate it back to this job because of how servers are even looked at or whatever. Now, I was only fine with doing that because of how much I knew myself and I was living more where I could be truly me and I could be honest with myself and know that, like, you know, I was lying to myself doing that. Now, it was nice to say that I have that experience, that they sold $1 million deals and that you're dealing with all those people. But the fact of the matter is a lot of them weren't great people. It wasn't what I knew I should have been doing.
And money is shit if you're not happy. Exactly.
Now, the server assistant being an SA, that was completely honest. right? So I could be fine even with someone that I sold software to before coming into the restaurant, and you watch their face when they see you like you're here now, right? That wouldn't really fuck with me, but the little bit of a voice there's the ego. It's popping in a little bit, right? It's telling me that I should really care about that. Like, but you shouldn't at all.
You shouldn't. Yeah. No. I've had incidents where I'm like, for example, I went to the club, and I really try not to club that often just because I don't really want to be in the club. Like, I don't really like the way I feel the next morning. I feel like shit. I don't know. Day parties, though, that's my jam. I love day parties, brunch, anything like brunch parties. That's my thing. And I will go, like, I love networking, like parties, things like that. It's not that I don't like to party. I like to party. I'm young still, so I'm having a great time. But the club just, I don't know. I just try not to do it. I'm also in a space, like, you know how when you, like, try to lock in, it's kind of like, I don't want all the extra distractions. Like, I don't want to be fucked up all the time. I don't want to be, like, and I feel like at times, because a lot of my friends aren't actually, like, I do have friends who, I'm not going to say that. I have plenty of friends who are artists. We don't live close enough to spend a lot of time together. My friends that are like my best friends, like my close-knit friends, aren't artists though. So this is one of the first questions I had for you before I even met you. Was like, what's it like having a life where, like, modeling, if you were to say, like, that being an art form and that being something that you're pursuing, like, what's it like having friends that they got 9-to-5s or normal jobs? It's gotta in some way, you know, it can be difficult.
Fuck with understanding or fuck with scheduling, a lot of different things.
It can be difficult. I feel like it didn't really feel difficult up until this year. And I feel like that's only because I'm way more conscious of the fact of what I need to do self-discipline-wise to get what I want. You know what I mean? Like, there's times where I'm not going to want to go out with y'all. There's times where you guys can be in the living room hanging out and drinking, and I want to be in my room. It's not that I don't want to be around you guys per se. I just know that I just did that 3 nights ago. So tonight I'm going to spend my night doing something actually productive. Like, you know what I mean? It makes me feel like sometimes I'm being like a grandma, or I'm like pushing my friends away. Yeah.
And or like you need to explain it every time.
Yeah, and like that sucks.
If they even understand the explanation.
Right. And it sucks, but it's necessary. Like, you know? And
because it's just going to become a burden and something else that you're carrying around the moment that you go against. And I don't
never want it to get to a point where it's like, okay, now I just can't be your friend at all. Like, I don't think it will, because we've been friends since we were like 8. They understand. Like, we have that friendship that they understand. But I'm saying it's nice that I feel like I'm lucky to be able to have that understanding. You know what I mean, with my friends. I do feel like I'm sorry. I was getting to a point and I forgot where we were going. What was I saying?
About friends, about needing to actually like you had just did that. You don't need to be going out. You don't need to be in the living room.
Yeah, I don't need to be going out all the time and stuff like that. So I feel like it was something you had touched points on before, and it totally escaped me. But I was getting to such a good point. Anyways, what I was saying is that, like, damn, this is why my pen and paper. Tag. It was such a good point.
You want to jump into the Alan Watts thing, and if it comes up, bullet it.
I got you. I'm gonna think on it. We can do Alan. I'm off for Alan, and I'm a write that.
It's funny how conversation period ends up working out. Like, and here's one of those other points where we were talking about before, like being more in the moment with other people. There are especially the way my mind works, and I'm sure yours is similar, that there are so many things that end up coming up, like, oh, I want to bring up Springfield, relationship with father, this, all these things start pinning. It's almost like you got like a bunch of little fucking tacks and you're putting up notes. Meanwhile, the realest way to be there has nothing to do with tacking up that fucking note. And you need to just let it go, right? You just like, oh, we should, like, oh, she's telling me something about like her, like growing up in Springfield, and I want to bring up this, or it makes me think of this, but like the moment I even start thinking about, I need to bring this back up, I need to bring this back up, it will fuck up the way that your flow's going, and I'm not really paying attention to you like that, right? So it's just like shutting that off and like and having faith that it got tossed up around in there somewhere, it'll come back out.
We're just bouncing.
It's just bouncing. That's how the fractals would end up working. I got my I'll play this now. Just play it and then I'll edit it in. I don't even want to say this. I might have to cut this part out, but which I never do, but I took a piece of Blue Planet 2 to use for the visuals for this. So, like, I need to keep it small on the screen when I show it and everything like that. But it's something I want to start doing. If even just to, I never knew what to put for my Instagram stories that you could put as the ones that stay now. And I think I'm going to start doing these.
Yeah, for like your highlights. Yep.
Yeah. We could take these off for a second because I'll play it through that speaker. And then I'll edit it in after.
Dope.
All right. Usually Alan Watts. I'll spark that up too.
Yeah, hell yeah. This is great.
All right. That should all. One of the next goals is definitely getting like everything I do to make this podcast function. Even the fact that I'm a big Adidas Boost person, I want to I need some sponsors, right? Yeah. So I want to start getting these in there.
Hell yeah. I would get all the sponsors.
You got to.
The Buddha said that wisdom
I'll run it back
must come only from...
Turn this on. There you go.
The Buddha said that wisdom must come only from the abandonment of selfish craving or desire. One who abandons that desire attains nirvana, which is supreme peace, liberation. Nirvana means in Sanskrit, blow out. That is, exhale the breath. The opposite, desire, is to breathe in. Now, if you breathe in and hold it, you lose your breath. But if you breathe out, it comes back to you. So the principle here is, if you want life, don't cling to it. Let go. But the problem is, if I desire not to desire, is that not already desire? How can I desire not to desire? How can I surrender myself when myself is precisely an urge to hold on, to cling to life, to continue to survive? I can see rationally that by clinging to myself I may strangle myself. I may be like a person who has a bad habit, as a result of which he is committing suicide. And he knows that, but can't give it up. Because the means of death are so sweet. So it all comes down to this basic question, that human beings have for a long, long time been concerned about transforming their minds. Is there any way in which one's mind can be transformed? Or is it simply a process which is nothing more than a vicious circle? I could ask, why have you come here this afternoon? What were you looking for? Would it be too presumptuous of me to say that you were looking for help? That you hoped you would hear somebody who had something to say that would be of help and relevance to you as members of a world which is running into the most intense difficulty. A world beset by a complex of problems, any one of which would be bad enough. But when you add together all the great political, social, and ecological problems with which we are faced, they are appalling. And one naturally says, the reason why we are in such a mess is not simply that we have wrong systems for doing things, whether they be technological, political, or religious, but we have the wrong people. The systems may be all right, but they are in the wrong hands because we are all, in various ways, self-seeking, lacking in wisdom, lacking in courage, afraid of death, afraid of pain, unwilling really to cooperate with others, unwilling to be open to others. And we all think that's too bad. It's me that's wrong. And if only I could be the right person. Is this man going to tell me something that will help me to change myself so that I will be a more creative and cooperative member of the human race? I would like to improve. So in so many people's minds and from so many different angles, there is this urgent feeling that I must improve me. And this is critically important because it's obvious that, at least it's superficially obvious, that the way things are, we are going to hell fast. Now, in this question, can I improve me? There is the obvious difficulty that if I am in need of improvement, the person who's going to do the improving is the one who needs to be improved. And there immediately we have a vicious circle. All right, you want grace? Well, ask God, maybe he'll give it to you. And the theologian will tell you, yes, God gives his grace freely. He gives it to all because he loves all. It's here like the air. All you have to do is receive it. Or a more orthodox, a Catholic Christian would say, all you have to do is to be baptized, to take the holy sacrament of the altar, the bread and wine, the body and blood of Christ, and there is the grace right there. And it's given by these simple physical means so that it's very easily and readily available. Well, a lot of people got baptized, and it doesn't always take. People fall from grace. Why do they? You see, we're just talking about the same old problem, but we've put it a step up. But it's the same problem. How can I improve myself? Was the first problem. The second problem is, how can I accept grace? They're both the same problem. Because you've got to make a move which will put yourself out of your own control into the control of a better. If you don't believe in the Christian kind of a God, you can believe in the Hindu kind of a God, who is your inner self. You see, you've got a lower self, which you can call your ego. That's that little scoundrelous fellow that's always out for me. But behind the ego, there is the Atman, the inner self, the inward light, as Quakers would call it, the real self, the spirit, which is substantially identical with God. So you've got to meditate in such a way that you identify with your higher self. Now, how do you do that? Well, you start by watching all your thoughts very carefully, watching your feelings, watching your emotions, so that you begin to build up a sense of separation between the watcher and what is watched, so that you are, as it were, no longer carried away by your own stream of consciousness. You remain the witness, impassively, impartially, suspending judgment. and watching it all go on.
I had to add it in there from the Dre album. Yo, how...
That was perfect. That was perfect.
How fucking... Now, it could be because I made this with Nick recently and was listening to this Alan Watts. It could be because of that it just inherently listening to this and things that have been top of mind recently just happened to play their way out in everything that we talked about beforehand. There's probably 3 to 5 critical points of self or just practice that he brings up that through our conversation we had been touching on, and he just finds much more graceful words to sum it up in than I ever can. But we were on those subjects, right? And talking about those dilemmas. Before you say anything, there is one thing that he says later on in that speech. I just didn't cut it in. I was already 8 minutes. I have a hard time cutting out what's good, because to me it's all good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But he does bring up so you know how he talks about the person that's gonna do the improving of oneself is oneself. Right, you're gonna do that on improving. He talks about it how we could play games with ourselves because. Say now you're thinking about all of your thoughts and what you do and your actions and etc. The police get a call to the first floor that, of an apartment building that some robbers are breaking into the first floor, and the robbers run upstairs. And then the police, they go to the second floor and they go to the third. If the police bounce, they jump right back down. So when you think about yourself being the one that needs to improve yourself, even when being conscious and taking into consideration watching your actions and doing this and that, a way that you could kind of if being better gets a slight facade in not being correct wholly, or not wholly, but as a whole, more just as a self-righteous self-edit at that point in time. I thought that was really interesting because being aware of just that thought makes me think about a lot of times I'm trying to improve me, and the person doing the improving, how they pick and choose and dive and weave maybe, which might not be a good thing. But I just wanted to tell you that first because that was important to me also.
Yeah, no, that was interesting.
A little bit closer.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That was interesting when he said that, when he was like, how can I desire but not desire? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a few things that was exactly what I said. When do you feel like you ever get so caught up on the things you want that, like you said, in the moments where you are you're so high strung on improvement that you don't even acknowledge the small points where you have improved.
Yeah. It could be why we have some low lows too, right? Yeah. Because in those moments, on those days, you're so high strung on that one particular piece that you're not really looking at the rest of your 2018 and see that it was actually very profound and healthy.
Yeah, there was plenty of things where, you know what I mean, where there was light, more or less, and you just couldn't even, you were so blinded by that one thing that you're beating yourself up about. That was interesting.
But then you keep going through life and keep not listening to gut, intuition, etc. And there's certain things and directions and truths and I knows, not I thinks, right? That come up that you get beat up when you don't listen to them, when you don't follow it. It could be simple taking the quarter off the dresser and needing it for parking later, or it could be something recently being yo, go to Thanksgiving and see the family that you haven't seen in a while, and then you don't, and then 3 days later your aunt dies, something like happens. That, slaps on the secular wrist, if you will, of things that are they are signs. They're signs from grace almost. It's then you start listening, and the grace point that he makes is huge, right? When he says why do so many people fall from grace? I can't help but first and foremost thinking of artists. That fall from, and when he says grace, and I guess what I define as grace, when you and I first met and we were the power in the year, certain come-ups and things that people could do in a year. Now, how were they carrying themselves and composing, etc., so that that year was a year that looks and feels like it is, which is true grace, right? Right place, right time, etc. You're listening the entire time. You found a way. You've learned all this work from. Yeah,
like there's a flow.
It's the farmer's not thinking about how deep to dig the hole. He's just going, right? He knows the DCs need to be in more shade, right? Just doing, not thinking about it. It's lessons that you could put on there. So I think a lot of wisdom comes into the acceptance of grace, and I think some people just accept it more than others. You and I think a little bit more, right?
That,
so
that was something he said. Take yourself out of control and place control somewhere else. Like,
yeah, that's putting the fear behind you.
Yeah, and just allowing it to, like, trusting.
Yeah,
I think that's something big that I have to, like, tie into my resolution as well. Like, you know, with like the self-discipline thing, like with self-discipline I also have to trust what it's so
easy not to and to get caught up when the rest of the world says here's what's normal, here's how you should normally make.
You hear, like, I don't know, you feel so good about something and it doesn't go the way you have planned. It shouldn't be, like, I would like to think, like, you know, it's not that heavy. And then I would have these days where I'm just like, damn, like, for some reason it's so heavy and now that's all I'm thinking about. But now I feel like I'm blocking positive things that could be coming because I'm dwelling on the bad thing that happened a week ago. Like, you know what I mean? Just because they're in the same realm, I don't have to hold my next opportunity to the one that I missed, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
The interesting thing about getting stuck on something is, so specifically even this past year, one thing I've noticed with myself is that I have been a lot more truthful in regards to, like, everything, right? Once again, I would pride myself on not being like a lie, but I'm just saying, like, on the realist level of it, of, like, being honest and telling the truth. One thing I noticed is as I started doing it a lot more, where I could get this vulnerable and open for whoever would even hear this, is that funny little things were things I'd end up dwelling on. It's very hard to shut my mind off. If I think that there's something in my moral or value spectrum that I received or gave that was off, that wasn't right, and was not how I think I should be as a person, it's just something negative and I dwell on it. It's there are things that, like, point to relevant changes that need to be made on either my part or the person who's doing it part. And they're important things. This is why I feel like I'm too deep for the intro, why I want a long format podcast conversation, you know, like, because then the things that I end up focusing on really are just part of the work to be better. And that's where I feel like he was going with, it's the same thing. Like, trying to improve yourself and accepting grace are the exact same thing. It's the I knows with action, not the I thinks and the dwelling on it, right? It's just going like that.
Flow.
Yeah. And then you see what grace, like, I used to hear grace, like, in a song or in a lyric, or just even, like, going to CCD in church when I was younger, right? And
I think of ballet.
Okay,
when
keep
I hear
going.
Grace. So it reminds me of the flow. Like, it makes sense to me, you know? But
that's a good point.
I can't say I move with it perfectly. Like, you know, just as, or I can't say I've accepted it 100% at times. Like he said, why do people, like, turn from grace? There's been times where I have, like, in those low lows, I can admit that I have, you know?
Yeah,
so,
me too, for sure.
So even though
still struggling with that shit now,
of what grace is, for sure, me too. And even though I have a visual of it, I can't say I 100%, like, you know, live in that yet. But
we had to have this conversation in order to get to living in it. That's just part of our journey and understanding it for ourselves.
This little note is coming home with me.
Word. Good.
I'm taking it with me, for
I'm
sure.
about to take a picture of it too.
For sure. Do your thing.
But it's interesting. The same way that you say that you haven't, like, maybe committed to it fully or just gotten in that zone, it goes back to the same flow state, which is the circle of Tourage, the same flow state, which is the conversation, or just not deep down knowing that it was wrong or not, like basketball versus modeling, what actually felt right. It really all comes back to, like, so we're suddenly going with the flow, or be like water becomes that much more eye-opening, because it's just move that way, go, you feel that this is the right or wrong thing, right? Like, you know that, just do it, and do it without hesitating, right? So just go right hesitate. Downstream.
Like, you can't hesitate. I really...
And trusting that when you brought that up, that's really important.
I think,
especially for you and I, what you're trying to do next.
For sure. Because if I don't believe in myself, dude, I can't expect anyone else to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm grateful for those who do believe in me. You know, because as things progress, like, you know, I find, like, there's people who tell me I inspire them, or tell me, like, a goal of theirs is to work with me, or, like, you know, and it's like, we can work together now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but it's humbling, but it's encouraging. Like, it makes me feel like I'm doing something right, you know? But I still struggled with 100% trusting myself at times, and it's all a process. Like, I'm human, so I'm still going through. We're all still going through, like you said, and we're artists, so we're sensitive. Like, you know, I don't know, it can be difficult, but trusting it is definitely big. Like, I think intuition too. And just knowing, like you said, like the nose.
Well, name a time that you trusted it. You could do 2018 or whenever else, but just if you could like put it in the context of something you do with modeling, but if not, it's cool. But just a time that you were trusting it, and it did all work out.
All right, so I
in that moment, don't go taking things that happen after. And
all right, so in that moment. With modeling. So I really, really wanted to walk for this designer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like wanted to walk for Gypsy Sport. I just felt like I've walked for other people, and like something about them just made me feel like
Gypsy Sport.
Yeah, something about them just made me feel comfortable. Like, I didn't really feel like, I don't know. I didn't really feel like I had to be there and be like, I don't know, like, so high strung on the fact that I was there. Like, I could just be, like, you know, it was like,
just
I don't know, cool. Like, I really liked their, like, you know, their line, the clothing they were putting out, like the messages they were also like sending out to like the public and things like that. Like, I was all about it. So I really wanted to walk for them. They had a casting, and I was nervous. Like, I was so nervous. I was like, damn, like, if I don't walk, and the other people I've walked for before weren't having a show that season. So I was like, damn, if I don't walk for them, like, this is going to be the first time I'm missing a fashion week after being consecutive with walking in them. Like, I try to, like, I don't know, I just didn't want to miss it. Like, you know, I was like, I want to be able to walk this season. So I was like, I didn't have any other castings. So I was like, damn, like, you know, I wasn't signed or nothing. So I ended up going to the casting, and up until the day of the casting, like, all I did was, before I went to sleep, I would try to, like, go to sleep not watching anything and just visualizing myself walking for them. Like, I had no idea what I was going to be wearing or anything, but I just visioned myself being there, like, walking for them. I knew how things would be, like, backstage, because I've been backstage during New York Fashion Week and stuff, so I just imagined myself there, but for them. So the day of the casting, I just went there, and I was just, like, really chill. Like I said, I felt comfortable. Like, you know, I didn't know any of them, but for some reason it just felt like comfortable. So I just went there and did my thing. And then, like, when I left, I, like, got asked about how it went. And usually I'd be like, oh, you know, I feel like it went okay. Like, I guess now we just wait. But I was like, nah, I think it went good. Like, I think I'm going to be walking for them. Like, you know, and then it worked out. So I guess that would be, like, a time. I've done that as well, like, in basketball too, with Miami. I didn't want to play anymore, but I know I needed somewhere to live. I didn't know what I was going to do after the season. So I envisioned myself playing for them, and it's happened. So I really think, like, vision is, like, big.
Yeah.
Like,
it almost makes to both of your stories that the trusting part is, like, played out in trusting yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it was just, like, to trust that by visualizing it every single night. And like that's how you're gonna shut down, and that's how you're gonna start your next day and end that day or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
just seeing it. You got to see it too. Like, you know, you can tell yourself it over and over again, but you also have to like see it. Like, you have to have some vision of what you like, and also feeling wise too. Like, sometimes I try to imagine how I feel. Like, if I feel like if there's certain things I could think about, like the day I land my first huge my big campaign, I know I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna cry. It's like I'm gonna be overwhelmingly so happy, like, you know what I mean? Because I've done so many things to try to get there, like, and none of it's gonna be in vain, you know. So I'm like, I can only imagine how like full I'm gonna feel, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'll definitely cry.
Yeah, cry with me.
100%. I
crazy.
got no issue doing. If it means something, fuck yeah.
I have a friend who
I just
told
hope
me
it doesn't like blow up with memes though, you know. Fucking Jordan.
Yeah, not the Jordan meme is crazy. The one of him crying is like legendary group message memes.
Especially because there's generations of kids that he wasn't on TV for, and they know him through a crying picture. Yeah, that's fucked up.
That is fucked up, but it's so funny. Damn, memes. I love memes. What was life without memes though? Like, what were we sending before?
We were all just thinking this shit.
Yeah, just
we were all just thinking this shit.
You were sending the asterisks.
Like, if only copy and paste and paint and not saving as a fucking this file. It was so easy.
That's nuts. Technology's crazy now.
Yeah.
It's awesome, but like it's also crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I want to ask you a question though, because you rap. So like, I always loved the movie Brown Sugar. So like the question of like when was the first time you fell in love with hip hop? Like that's like a line in the movie, but it's so yeah, I want to ask you that question.
The first time that I actually fell in love with hip hop, so I automatically think of times certain that I had gotten turned on to certain things, which started with Gangstar, so like Premier and Guru. I got a mixtape from that aunt that passed away. Actually, she probably just found it in a bin, or maybe she thought I'd like this kind of art. But it's my brother's style of art now. It's like it's all of our favorites, so it definitely had something to do with it. She got me like a Gangstar mixtape. My cousin put me on to Tupac, and like it was really important to hear an alpha male talk about shit that I really thought mattered as a little kid. Somewhere along the line, and then the Roots, like, definitely as well, but somewhere along the line before my knowledge even started to expand, I have to say that first and foremost, I fell in love with hip-hop because out of all the other music genres, I didn't think there was any that you could just pick, and generally as a whole, those motherfuckers had to deal with the kind of shit that I needed to deal with. You know, no money shit, more violent shit, or just around the way, or just like drugs, all of that stuff. From a young age, I felt like when I heard good hip hop, it talked about a worthy struggle, and it's a few of them that I endure as well. And I'm not black, but like I understand. I don't know. I think it actually would have to be reversed. It's not that I'm not black. It's just because a lot of the hip hop that I looked up to had to do with, you know, African Americans or in like a ghetto. Maybe I wasn't in the ghetto, or even like, I mean, you're from Springfield. You know, it's a different relation, but it's one that you can identify with. It was like a friend that I just always had, that no matter what other friends I could talk to, like no matter what, like there were emotions and things that I had to feel that they talked about, and I could relate to it the most. So I love all music, man. Like I'll go a long time sometime, well, not recently, but without listening to hip hop, and I'll listen to crazy other shit. But that was like always my blood.
That's dope though. That's dope.
It's probably more of a feeling of being like alone in a room, like where you already had to grow up too young, and you felt like the world was on your shoulders, even though you're still a little kid and the rest of the world's still huge. but like there was a friend, and I could get into flow state with it, right? The beat moving around, like it like would just calm me. So like that's why I fell in love with hip hop. I don't know if I have a moment, just a bunch of them.
That's cool though. That's what's up. I the first time I fell in love with hip hop, I want to say when DMX first album dropped, It's Dark and Hell Is Hot. That was my album. Me and my dad used to drive around and listen to that album all the time. And at that age, like I didn't really know what he was talking about. You know what I mean? But as I got older, like I just kept listening to. I love DMX. I listened to like all different kind of artists though. Like so I can listen to like like even like now I like real like ratchet turn up music, but I also am like a huge fan of Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? My older brother loved Tupac, so I grew up listening to that too. But with DMX, he dropped Slippin', and still at that age I didn't really know. Like, you know, I was going through stuff, like family stuff. I was seeing my mom sad and stuff like that. Like I grew up way too fast, but I couldn't make the relation to that song up until I was like around 17, 18, where I started feeling like my heaviest. Like I said, with that, the like transition period of my life happened. And like Slippin', I used to like cry to that song. You know what I mean? It was like, that was like my joint, you know? So I don't know, DMX is always in like one of my top, like him. I love Eminem.
We'll talk about like a struggling artist, like DMX probably, I don't want to speak on not knowing, but like I would assume he's probably still dealing with that shit.
Yeah, he probably, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I still try to watch like interviews he has and things like that, but he doesn't do too many. He did one on Drink Champs not too long ago, but
yeah, his ass needs to get on this podcast sober as fuck.
And come and talk, right? That'd be dope.
If you're ever having a bad day, just look up DMX on a roller coaster. There's this YouTube video. It is fucking hilarious.
Is he wildin'? Because I can just imagine.
Yeah, holding his chain, I'm pretty sure. He's like, oh, shit. Fucking, his boy's bugging out.
I'm going to have to watch that because I can only imagine.
Wu-Tang. Right? Wu-Tang, too?
Wu-Tang, yeah. Love Method Man. I love Method Man. Love ODB.
Yeah, Takal. That album. I really feel like I don't know at all, and I've never really even looked into it, but I feel like RZA producing that shit, he must have heard Meth in like certain just freestyle sessions, and I feel like there's some pieces of that album, Takal, that like were taken from freestyles and then worked around after the fact.
And placed in after.
Yeah, like it's the way that I create with that kind of shit. Like there's sometimes in the freestyle where a lot of times you're setting the plot, but there are certain times that you jump into it, and because you're freestyling, you're in one of those grace modes, that flow state mode, you're not thinking about it too much, you're going in, and the feeling that you could convey in that
what you're saying
is
you can't
so
get
much
it
strong.
again.
Yeah, or at least you're gonna be picky as fuck about trying to get it in. I'll show you a couple of the things you're working on after.
All right, bet I'm down.
Yeah, but yeah, Wu-Tang, and I always love that, like when ODB interrupted the Grammy Award, and he was basically just, I'm pretty sure he interrupted someone else that went up on stage, maybe with or without a hoe, and took the mic and was just like Wu-Tang is for the children. And it makes me just think of the way I relate that, where a lot of people say, I think of it as like, we borrowed this planet we borrowed it from our children. We didn't inherit it from our ancestors, right? So like, I feel like that's one of those kind of themed comments. Like Wu-Tang is for the children. We went through it so you don't have to.
Right.
You could just hear about it and everything, but like they're for the next generation. They were always on some other shit.
Yeah.
Philosophy. That's why that book is amazing.
I have to read it.
Yeah.
It's like them in the Fugees, and like that era was... And like you said, like relatable as to growing up, like Springfield was tough, like growing up in Springfield. It's like, I love going home, but I lost like a lot of friends growing up. Like I've experienced things that I tell people stories and they've never even heard of, like, you know what I mean? But I feel like it shaped me. Like I wouldn't rather grow up any other way, but it definitely made me feel like, you know, connected to a lot of hip hop, like for sure. It was just, I don't know. It was like beauty and like the struggle of everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it still kind of ties into exactly what we were talking about today too. Like,
it really does.
yeah. At the end of the day, like, I guess the journey is beautiful no matter, you know, how bumpy it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, prepping for a 2019 where you got to go through some shit again. Like, you can't even prep for it. You're already thinking too much about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess I'm gonna try to flow through it.
Yeah.
Get comfortable flowing
Be like
through
water.
it. Right.
Bruce Lee's another one. Like, he's got a book. My brother has it. I've never actually gone all the way through it, but it's a lot of Bruce Lee quotes. I think quotes he pulls from other people too. That is pretty amazing. I'll get the name of it from my brother and I'll show you.
Yeah.
So have you ever heard of the game 36 Questions?
No.
Okay. So one thing I started doing, I forget what episode I started doing it on. There's this game 36 Questions. Apparently, if you play it with anybody who's sitting in front of you, and you each go through the 36 questions and answer them like honestly and fully, then apparently by the end of the game that you will like love the individual in front of you. It doesn't matter who it is. Really just think it's, so the questions get deeper, 1 through 36. I just started doing in one of the podcasts where I just have you go through 2 of them, right?
Okay.
Pick at random and you could go through it. I think it's a nice little way to like open it up.
All right.
It's weird because some of the same ones keep getting picked, but so you could pick 2
So I pick 2 and I just answer the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could read it out loud too.
All right. So if you were going to become a close friend with your partner, please share what would be important for him or her to know. A close friend.
So your partner in this game would be me, right? Like, so what is the question again?
If you were going to become a close friend with your partner, please share what would be important for him or her to know.
That's good. What number is that?
27. All right, something important, something that would be important for you to know if we were going to be close friends. I would need you to know if that we were going to be close friends. Is it okay? Is this supposed to be, is this supposed to be like personality wise or just like as like a basis in our friendship?
Well, I think they could both be the same, but I think it's more like the basis of the friendship.
Okay.
Like, think about it like this, like someone that you already got that's like close boys to you. What's something that they just know about you so they don't like blame you for it, or just know that you do, like,
Would
just be aware.
Yeah, so I would, if I'm in my room and my door is closed, don't knock. Text me and see if I'm like, if I, am busy or like, or if you do knock and I don't answer, just like leave me alone. Don't like, really try to get me out my room if I'm in my room. Like if I'm in there, let me be in my peace in my room. I'm in there for a reason, and I'll come out. Cause I know you knock, so I know you like want me for something. So I'll let like myself together and then come out, but don't like.
That is such a Cancerian.
I mean, needing the space. I'm like,
I feel you.
Need it.
Okay.
All right.
Noted.
One more. How close and warm is your family? Do you feel your childhood was happier than most other people's? My family isn't really close. I have a few people in my family I'm close to. Like I'm really close to my mom, my little brother I'm very close to. My dad and I have gotten closer. My brothers, sisters, we speak not as often as we should. And the same with like my aunts and my cousins. Like we speak, but we're not like, I can't really say anybody in my family actually knows what's going on with my life, in my life. They like support me, but they don't really know like what troubles Lia, like, you know what I mean, or like how I feel on a day-to-day basis or month to month for that matter, you know. And it's not like, I don't know, I could also be better at that. I think when like my family, when we like kind of, my dad kind of moved away, my mom always worked third shift. So my dad kind of not being around the way he was at first kind of made me comfortable with like separation, like, you know. So then also when I did all that moving around, like during college, my mom was in Alabama for 5 years or so, and like me and my brother were in Massachusetts, and I was everywhere. But I would go months without speaking to my mom, not for any reason, just because I was comfortable with separation, or I didn't really feel like I needed to go home for holidays. Like holidays are like, you know, to me, it's like,
and you could only build that back so fast.
Yeah, but my friends, like I've always had, like my friends that I've been friends with since I was like 8. Like there's like there's a few of us, but like there's a bunch of us, I should say, but the ones I'm really close to, I live with them now. And even through all of that, like whenever I needed to come home, I was coming home to live with them, whether it's like their grandmother's house or like, you know, so they were always like my family too. So
how long have you known them?
Since we were in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Some since we were 8 years old.
A lot of people don't even have friends that go back that far anymore.
Yeah, we're super close. It's crazy. I wouldn't say that my life wasn't happier than most others, because I don't really feel like what could be like heavy to me could be really light to you, and what could be really, you know, and vice versa. So I won't say that. I went through a lot of like childhood trauma, like, you know, things that I've now noticed and I'm able to acknowledge now, but it still also affects my life now in like, you know, more ways than one. But I feel like everyone has, like, you know, so I won't necessarily say that, no, but you know, I've gone through things like everyone has. I'm still learning how to like navigate through going through them, because I haven't fully, not that I haven't fully dealt with them, I guess maybe I haven't fully rid of all of them yet. But I have my demons too, you know, so
yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, working on them.
I feel you on that. Families, I've been doing a lot of work recently just to try to, like when you were saying like, oh, that's my fault too, like definitely those areas that I want to improve on is just because I had my dad got remarried, and I ended up right now I have a 12-year-old little sister, right? So when she came back in, it was like this this like foot down reminder that's just you're gonna be a role model to like blood again. Like I was always, my relationship with my brother, my younger brother, was even so important, but here's someone else now, and like now you're also in the context of learning and growing after, like what you know after by now what is good to show. It kind of, you know, it's like you always know the right thing to do, it's just whether or not you actually do it. That was like this, that could sum up like your late teens, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
how you felt. Like you definitely already did. She was a nice reminder, and just you already do know, so like act accordingly, or at least strive to like be the best in that way.
Yeah.
Right. So like mending relationships and building the family and spending time. I'm nowhere near the best at it, but it's been a little bit of work at a time for like over 12 years now. 11 years now.
It takes time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a newborn. Well, she's not a newborn. She's about to be 3. I have a baby sister. And I feel like even in those 3 years, my dad's like become a better person. You know, sometimes it takes those things. Like it takes time. Like, you know, so my little brother, though, he gives my dad like a hard time still sometimes. And my little brother, like the one right under me, his name is LJ. We like look just alike. But that's like my best friend. So, because my mom was in Alabama, he was living with my dad. So it was kind of like I had to step up and be like mom, kind of, like, you know. So we became really close during that time. But he gives my dad a hard time still, and I try to tell him like, dude, you have no idea. You got a good daddy right now. Like, you're not dealing with nothing, bro. Like, lighten up on him a little bit, but he'll see. I think he'll see it eventually too. Like, you know, it all take. Everybody's on their own time. Yeah,
those are the times that I end up. There's a certain level of understanding of my own father that would have never happened unless I eventually had dealt with the same things in life, to know how that feels. Now, how empathetic or vulnerable I could be after that point, it's changed and evolved, but still, like, once those things come up.
Yeah, even if you deal with it differently, once you experience it, it's like, okay, I can kind of see how somebody could have handled it this way, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, our parents were definitely in the dark that much more than their parents before them. We're really in that blossoming age.
For sure. Like,
yeah.
The awakening, everybody's like, not everybody, but more people, like more and more people are becoming more and more aware of, and I even try to speak to my parents about some stuff sometimes, and they still just can't grasp it. And it's like, it's all right. One day I'm gonna keep on. So
just a little bit different ways to relate, but it'll end up coming back to you for sure. So I think that we should get back together in like a year, see how everything ends up playing out. When do you leave?
Next Sunday is my last day here.
Where?
On the 6th.
And are you going to Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Okay. I should be in Brooklyn a few times in the year coming up too. So
you gotta let me know.
For sure.
We can do some stuff.
Where could actually my boy stopped by before. He's like, "Is she a model?" Tell her I'm a photographer. I'm like, okay. But where could anyone find you? Photographers, agencies, whatever. How should they find you?
On all social media platforms, Oldirtiislim. OLDIRTIISLIM.
Right.
Oldirtiislim.
I'll throw up like a little recording on your Instagram. Yeah.
All right, dope.
No doubt.
Appreciate you.
This was a good conversation. I feel like I got to like dump out a bunch that's just been.
Yeah, I'm sorry about your aunt as well.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to say that. I didn't want to cut you off, but.
Oh, no worries. I'll play some gangsta in the memory out there.
For sure.
Yo, Leah, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. I had fun.
Pleasure. I did too.
Thank you.